Good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to Conversations with CJ Rose. I'm CJ Rose, and this is the timing that must be done. May I say to my family all over the world, may the Most High bless you and keep you, and may He bestow upon you the spirit of understanding, the spirit of wanting to receive truth, blessings, and peace. We are doing part 2 of our conversation of last week, where we were dealing with the importance of imaging, and we call that brand black. So who owns our imaging? Who owns our advertising campaigns? We had in the studio Gareth John from Can Do by Design Agency, who works with us today. We have, though, again, we brought the iconographer Kofi Allen, who's streaming live from the Gambia, Professor Femi Boga Asigai, live from Connecticut, USA, and we're waiting for Seun Senu to come through from Liverpool. Hopefully we'll have him. I think he's there. So he's there, we've got him. So we are live, and we like it that way, so we do get technical difficulties along the way. If you're tuning into this broadcast, we ask you to phone someone or send the link to someone so they can really listen to this very, very important topic. So I'm going to bring in Sister Femi, Professor Femi, just to say hi and introduce herself again for those who don't know you before we start the conversation. Hi, how are you, Sister Femi?
I'm very well, thank you. Good afternoon to your viewing audience, your listening audience. I am well. I am Femi Bogo Asigai, a retired professor, but I'm still in the field remotely. And I am giving my time back to my community by running an organization called Sankofa Kaumba, where we teach our young people African dance, drumming, the spoken word, the visual arts, and the like. So it's all very artistic. And that is primarily what I am doing at this time as a retired person.
Thank you. Kofi Allen, we can see you.
Peace and love, peace and love. How are you doing? Well, it's a pleasure to be back on the Media Net Live. As you know, Kofi Allen, I'm an iconographer. I'm here in the Congo DRC. On kind of a sabbatical from what I do as a visual artist after spending 30 years constructing the image that represents us, by us, for us, and for the future. You know, looking at Africa's spirituality through the lens, understanding that we must own our gaze, it's essential. Otherwise, you're someone else's illusion, which means you can be deceived for your entire life. So I felt it was important as an artist to make that statement. You know, we can get into the ramifications of that, and I'm sure we've got lots to talk about. I'm here in the Congo setting up a foundation now. That's the next part of my journey, I believe, to make sure we work towards setting up a framework and a bedrock for the next generation to actually stand on that belongs to them. So this is my journey.
Welcome to the platform.
Much appreciated.
Thank you, Seun Senu. Thank you again for sorting out your technicalities. Welcome again to the platform. I hope you can see my face. I've got a big logo going across my face.
Yes, it is. It's not fair. That's much better.
Yeah.
And you look so attractive in your outfit, I must say.
Yeah, I wanted to show my outfit, you know what I mean? So welcome again, Senu. Please introduce yourself to the listeners this week again.
Thank you very much. Yes, my name is Seun Senu. I'm a educationist. I've been teaching now for 29 years. Wow, yeah, it'll be 30 years this year actually. And yes, my quest has been basically to teach mathematics. That's my specialist subject. but I also my main thing is to actually educate our people, our students, as to who they are. As I said before, it's very important to understand who you are, even before you start to branch out into understanding other things. Because in order to understand anything else, you have to have as a basis and a full understanding of who you are, and therefore how you need to interact with this terrain. And so, yeah, that's my number one thing. I teach mathematics. I'm also a singer-songwriter and a fine artist.
Thank you very much. And we have our topic lined up, but I kind of move with my spirit, my sentiments, and I just want to say we are talking about brand black. We are talking about who owns imaging, negative, positive, etc. And we know the importance of imaging because it plays on your subconscious mind, right? That's what the power of advertising. We're going to go through that in a minute. And the subconscious mind is very, very powerful because it's the one that acts very silently, but it doesn't differentiate truth from falsehood. It just acts on what it is fed. And it's what programs us most times. So the importance of imaging is very powerful to the subconscious mind. Hence why advertising and media is the industry that it is. But I wanted to say commiserations and my heartfelt sadness about losing our brother, Chadwick Boseman, who I believe, because I didn't really study, and I saw the film Black Panther. I know how important it has been for us as a cultural dynamic, especially having a hero for young Black boys to look up to. And then his untimely passing away is just shocking to me. I just don't, so we send our heartfelt commiserations to his family, to the cast of that powerful imagery of that powerful film. Does anybody have any views on this, basically?
Me.
Yeah. Anyone?
Okay, sorry. Okay. Yes, it was I was completely in shock because not only was he an amazing brother, but he was also extreme. Well, he always came across as being very, very strong and healthy and physically fit. And so that sort of person is the last person that you'd expect to hear something like that about, you know. And the film was so iconic. I mean, I'd actually venture to say that that is the first film of its type ever on a big screen, because it actually, the way that it portrayed Africa and it portrayed us, it was looking forward to a time when this can actually happen, and it's also looking back at a time when this sort of thing was going on. So it was linking what we know about the past to what can happen again, and I think that he was symbolic of that whole that whole movement, the film, and everything that came after the film. So it was. I mean, I was devastated to find out that he had passed away.
Okay. Because the Black Panther movie, I think, as you say, it looked at the past and it also it showed what could be in the future, and it took technology was incorporated in that film in a very, very big way. Brother Kofi.
Yes, thank you. I mean, commiserates, and may his power rest in the eternal power.
Yes.
Because what he laid down as an actor was, something from the Sidney Poitier era.
Yes.
Also, when I come to learn that Denzel Washington was the patron behind Chadwick Boseman, who actually sponsored him and assisted his career to where it got to.
Yes.
And I love that narrative, that it was, a journey. Now, Boseman, you could see that he lived for every moment, and knowing all that was going on in his mind, he put this statement of the iconographic, infinity process. And when I saw him in Black Panthers, when he first appeared in the Avengers, that one scene, and it took it to another level. And then I saw the film, and it's the first film I've been to where I saw the whole community come out, drums in the foyer. Everyone was in their African garments. You know, I sat beside this young lady from Congo, and she said to me, "Do you know, in Africa we have this technology?" And I laughed. I said, "Yes, if only we knew." Yeah. So it was a beautiful moment of where fiction and reality kind of connected. And somewhere intrinsically within us, we knew it hit a cerebellum of truth. You know, so Mace, yeah, you know, he's made a bold statement. His life is just begun. His journey just begun. You know, so I'm going to celebrate him because he achieved a serious milestone in the short lifespan here on Earth.
Deep condolences to his family. I think I agree with Brother Kofi. His life has just begun. He was such a beautiful brother. He carried a spirit that was just very, very authentic. Somehow I felt it as authentic. And I believe he was just a deeply loving human being. He seems to give all of himself. And he did what he had to do in this dimension. But his life has just begun. Because everywhere you look at information related to him, he is giving of himself. Such a beautiful human being. And it seems to me that for us, as African people, globally, this is another statement to us. It's a pain. It's painful for us. So it's another statement superimposed on all of what we have been dealing with in 2020 as a collective, that we have serious, serious work to do. This is a different time for us.
Absolutely. And, you know, the impact of this brother and the impact of that piece of work will live on in our minds, in our hearts, and forever, hopefully. Okay, so branding. I'm going to start out. We wanted to recap on last week. We talked about, and we held that thought for this week, the importance of a word, a byword, I'm going to call it, because we seem to have many bywords, and this actually does fall in line with the prophecy about what we become in our demise. We seem to have many bywords that's used to describe us, our sojourn, our culture, etc. But very recently, there's been an attempt to kind of summarize the destruction of our culture, our heritage, our spirit. You can't destroy the spirit, but what we stand for in this dimension. Sister Femi, how important is a word? And if there is one, what should it be?
A word is absolutely critical. I think it's really important. The conversation that was had between Brother Senu last week and Brother Goff, the ending conversation where he described and articulated what racism has come to mean, which to my mind, it's now a feckless term that we do not even need to use. And Brother Goff's comments. We absolutely need to use our own language to begin to define our own situations across the board. And the word that I would suggest that we look at taking on as it relates to this business of our destruction is the word Mahafa. Mahafa. Some of us have heard it, some of us have not. But if we haven't heard it, we need to look at what it means. We now have the internet. It's M-A-A-F-A, Mahafa. That is a term that is an African term. It was given to us by Sister Marimba Ani, who speaks of the great destruction of the African people and the African continent. And the word needs to have legitimacy, and it needs to be one that we can all identify with. We don't need to make anything up. We have words in our various African languages that represent an entire sentence in English. So we have to begin to identify what those words are and begin to use them. You know, like Ubuntu. We don't, right? That's a word, that's an entire sentence. So I think the word Mahafa is appropriate, and we need to begin to use it because it speaks to not just the past destruction, but the continued destruction. And again, it's standing in our own shoes. So for me, that word is Mahafa.
And how do we get that across? Because
we get that across by using it. Those of us who are, again, in a position of leadership, we have a responsibility. Those of us who are knowledgeable, we have a responsibility. Those of us who no longer understand ourselves as victims, we have responsibility. Because the way that we use language, and again, Brother Senu articulated it last week very well. English is a horrible, horrible language for us as African people. We're all encompassing. We're all encompassing. And so we need words that are going to be able to express what it is that we actually mean. English does not do that for us. We're invariably always talking past each other because we're never usually in the same book, on the same page, in the same chapter. So we misunderstand. Where everybody's talking and misunderstanding what's being said. We need to get back to a language or languages that speaks to our souls, that speaks to us. So the responsibility is on us as diasporans out here in the West to find and identify words in our African culture that better speaks to what we're feeling, how we're thinking, what we want to express. Use those words and force other people, if you will, to understand what those words are and tell them. You know, one of my favorite writers happened to be Chimamanda Adichie. Right? Now, she writes in English and Igbo and the various other Nigerian languages. And she makes, and of course, you know, the West loves everything about her because she's so fluent in all of their stuff. So fluent in it. She can get in it, come out of it, go around it, spin it around. And we have a responsibility, I believe, to educate our people by how we use words and by how we construct words and how we deconstruct words and sentences and literally paragraphs. Because it's all about, again, definition, identity, and ownership.
Absolutely. A picture paints 1,000 words, Kofi Allen. Can you hear me?
Oh, we've lost him.
Have we lost you, Kofi? I'll switch to Senu. Can you unmute? Kofi Allen, unmute.
Yeah, he's muted, isn't he?
Yeah. I'm going to go to you, Senu. A picture paints 1,000 words. You're an artist.
Absolutely. Well, that's what, of course, that's what the hieroglyphs were about, isn't it?
Yes.
I mean, it's about. I think that the key would be to ensure that we have very, very firm definitions of the words that we choose to use that are accessible to everybody. So when we speak, we're not speaking at cross purposes, because it's very important. I think that oftentimes, even using the language that everyone has already been taught, oftentimes we speak at cross purposes and we say, so, oh, you know, racism. And then someone will say, yeah, racism, man. Yeah, because my white friend went through racism as well, because certain people didn't like him because he was white. And it's like, you know, and there's all of these misconceptions about what the meanings of these things are. And so, you know, when we introduce new words, which I think is vital for us to do, we can't use this language in the form that it is at the moment. As we know, this language was created by the people who it came through. For their purposes, and so it doesn't serve us very well. So us using this language and we bring in other words that actually explain our experience, we have to be very clear about what those words mean, so that when we do speak, everyone is completely clear about what we're dealing with. And that foundation of understanding, I think, is vital. You know, it's key and it's everything.
Thank you. You know, I hope Kofi Allen can unmute. He's done it. Okay, because I'm gonna. There is this thing about, and we mentioned it last week, Femi, about when we put out an expression, because we're a genius when it comes to linguistics, really. It's just that the English language is so foreign to our original dialect that we annihilate it and we come up with new expressions, like the term bling or bling bling. That is now entered into the dictionary. I was at a meeting in Brixton the other day, and for those of you in other parts of the world, Brixton in the UK is, I suppose, the Harlem of the US, right? It's where we have a lot of cultural identity, but there's been a lot of gentrification of Brixton. And I was in a business, and they were showing me something that they made, and what was stamped on this product was "One Love Brixton." And I thought, hold on a second, that didn't come from you. So how has it become an expression for everybody else? It was "One Love Brixton." One love comes from our community, it's from us. So how do we talked about IP and owning expressions, and actually you can monetize these expressions, but we don't know. We don't know this. How do we control that? How do we make sure? It's one thing to force. We don't own dictionaries. Anything to do with denoting our expressions comes from someone else. We don't have or they call it Ebonics, the way we speak. We don't have an expression of our own, or a way of immortalizing our expressions, almost like a Bible of cultural expressions for our people, for Black people. We don't have that, and we need that, because our expressions have reached the whole world. Kofi. Can you hear me? Can't hear you. We've lost you. We've lost his voice. So we've lost Kofi. So let me just go to you, Sister Femi, regarding us having some type of publication that we can actually track, that we own a lot of these expressions and they're not taken over by other.
There are some publications like that. They're around. The publications. They either patois, you say Ebonics, or Jamaican English, or what have you. Those exist. But I think what is significant, and what we're really talking about, as you just said, monetize the words and the expressions. When what we have to say becomes popular, when it becomes popular, then it ends up in those publications, the dictionary, and once it ends up in the dictionary or the Guinness Book of Records or something, then somehow it's acceptable, and yes, it can be monetized, but it's being monetized currently by other people. So what we have to do is to place our own value on our expressions and our statements and our creations, so that when we do or say or make something or create something, we have to then copyright that. We have to have enough respect for self and respect for culture to know that we're doing something valuable and that we need to copyright it. Because at this point, we really don't. We tend to just go off and do things and ignore it and leave it alone. I actually say to people now, when I'm working with them or interacting with them, when they have a word or they have a sentence or they have a statement or they have an idea or they have designed or created something, I say, you need to copyright that. You need to copyright that. I'm working with a brother right now who, as an artist, he does all kinds of phenomenal artwork with puppets and things. And I said to him, no, that term you need to copyright. These are the puppets that you have. You need to copyright them. Because down the road, they're going to be stolen. The ideas are going to be stolen. It's what we need to have. It's what we need to do. We don't stop long enough to do the work that we need to do to preserve our own ideas, our own culture, our own creations, and or place value on it. We disregard it. And part of it has to do with the fact that we're generous. We're not all consuming and narcissistic. That's not naturally who we are. But we live in the West, so we get caught up in all of that, right? The narcissism and the self-indulgence and so on. But we need to place value and respect on our creations now that we know we've had several years of this. Now that we actually have the evidence that our ideas are stolen and monetized, our creations are stolen and monetized. You know, the evidence exists. So we now need to not keep it close to our chest, but rather copyright these things and brand them in a way that allows us to reap the benefits, allow our families to reap the benefits. Especially now we're busy talking about generational wealth. Well, we have lots of generational wealth. It just doesn't belong to us, you know, because others have stolen it by patenting it and copyrighting it, claiming it.
Absolutely. Kofi Allen, can you hear me? We've got you.
My apologies. It was a technical glitch there, but this is exciting.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm just going to pick up on the construct, the word, first of all, is branding. Yeah. See, that in itself is going to have a negative effect on me wanting to brand myself. Just think of the connotation of what branding meant in enslavement. So the word branding, we need to get rid of that word. Eliminate branding. I don't want to brand myself. Yeah. Okay. I want to own my construction. Yeah. I want to define myself according to what it is that's valuable that I want to pass down as an heirloom that's going to be positive and effective for the next generation. Whether it can be valued in a state of address now in terms of monetary values, or whether it's got the intrinsic values that's going to be, you know, lasting a test of time on the shelf lifespan. These are significant matters. See, we are so busy being present. It's a natural thing for us to do. And because we are so busy being present, we don't realize someone on the sideline is taking notes and recognizing and measuring our quantum algorithm. And then they capitalize that because that's something they don't do. This is their modus operandi. It's a natural thing for some people to be more vampirous and some people to be more productive. And as Mama Femi rightfully stated, yeah, we produce so much. It's incredible, yeah. And then the mainstream what do you call it? The mainstream education in terms of how that curriculum is controlled. You know, in history lessons, I mean, I should go back and sue the whole 10, 30 generations of lessons because they de factoed us out of the conversation. We just was not present. So we didn't realize we was always constructively creating, inventing, making, mathematically, scientifically. I mean, the internet, the email, your light bulb, it just goes on and on and on and on. And David Icke, he has a name for that particular spirit, but it's as much as a vampire. It takes from those who create naturally and then repackage it and sells it back to you. And the spell word is branding because it's like it has an intuitive negative connotation to something that's effective to me. It's like the same reason why I don't like certain dogs.
I have to agree with him, Carol. Right, and it's that Sukunya spirit, by the way.
Oh, that's the one. Thank you.
He is correct. Coming from a totally African worldview perspective, what he has said about branding is in fact correct, and he's right. You know, and again, based on what he has said, when we're working with our own people, we have to literally go to explaining it in that kind of way. The term is used here, obviously, because that is the term that is understood. But when we're talking about claiming that which is ours, we have to engage in that deconstruction and reconstruction because it's about building our own reality.
Thank you. Thank you. But this leads me to something that's very passionate to my heart. And we're all kind of musically imbued on this panel, actually. Yourself, Femi, you're connected to Janet Kay, our amazing artist. Sean Seni, you're an artist. You sing. You are a visual artist, and you're also a recording artist. And Kofi Allen, you've had a career capturing musicians, i.e. reggae artists. And reggae music is very close to my heart. I love it. I get inspiration from cultural reggae music. For me, there's no other spiritually imbued sound than reggae, and to the point where, and I'm gonna, there's a big topic here, and I'm hoping we've got some reggae artists or up and coming artists listening, because this is very, very important, because we missed something. UNESCO in 2018, and that's the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, designated reggae an intangible cultural heritage of humanity. And this is what they say about reggae. They say its contribution to international discourse on issues of injustices, resistance, love, and humanity underscores the dynamics of the element as being at one cerebral, socio-political, sensual, and spiritual. The basic social functions of the music as a vehicle for social commentary, cathartic practice, and the means of praising God have not changed, and the music continues to act as a voice for all. But when you Google images for reggae music, I'm just going to show you some of the ones that I've picked out, which I found personally offensive. If we can just show those images, and you'll find this. This is one.
Wow.
As I am now, I mean, I'm speechless even looking at them again. I chose these images because I found there were so many. But I challenge anyone to go online and Google reggae music. Now, I'm asking reggae musicians if they are happy to have this sound, this genre of music that has been given the designated a cultural accolade, be depicted visually in this way. We know that Rastafari women are very humble in their dress code, but look at the way the woman's been depicted. Bob Marley being one of the greatest musical progeny of the 21st century, you depict him as a caricature with a weed symbol in his head. So is this what we want of a music that has inspired so many, that has sought to lift us up spiritually, politically, socially, economically? Is this the branding that reggae music deserves? Kofi Allen.
I don't know what to say. I mean, first I'm actually gonna laugh at this, because I'm gonna just put it. I'm gonna diminish it, because it can't take a value above where we stand right here, right now, and what we stand for, and what this represents to me. And this is what I spent my whole life fighting against. When I worked on various projects throughout the industry, 90% of the time they were on some what I would call lay behavior, in terms of the underestimating how serious I took my culture, and how serious it is to be taken, because it's not limited to any small demographic. It's a global issue, and the image is a very symbolic thing to us, and we recognize it because it's grafted in the hieroglyphics. It's not something that just came yesterday. It was the Dogons symbolically was showing you about Osiris B, because it was ritualized in the graph and the image. We're alchemists in this process. They could do what they must do. I mean, this just shows the infantile nature of the people that we got running the show. Now, unless we are prepared to police ourselves and police our culture and understand our own provenance of that culture said way, then these people will do what they do.
Because no one is challenged. I mean, this is forever. And when I Googled rock music and I Googled classical music, no comparison, not one. And So there's rolls of this type of imagery, rolls and rolls of it. And if you actually Google Rastafari, oh my gosh. So Sister Femi, yes.
CJ, the problem with turning our attention that way is actually what Brother Kofi just said.
Yes.
Part and parcel of this is a distraction. It is clearly offensive. It is horrific, but they will do what they do. The objective of the exercise in the West is to constantly disparage people of African ancestry in everything that we do. They will lie, they will cheat, they will misdirect, they will create, and they will then superimpose it upon us.
Mm-hmm.
And make it, again, it's that matrix. Make us believe that that is who we are. More idiot us to believe that. I'm saying that kind of consciousness is on its way out. There are more of us recognizing that that is their thing and a game. Because for as long as we're focusing on them, it means we're not focusing on ourselves. It means we're not building. It means we're not constructing images for ourselves and truths for ourselves, reality for ourselves, and then owning it.
Yeah.
All right? We have to do that, because to do anything else is to turn our attention and give our spirits, our souls, our power to that energy. And for as long as we keep giving ourselves to that energy, what happens is they continue to have power, they continue to have value, and they continue to step on our necks, or to kneel on our necks, if you will, because we allow that. All right? There, as you quite rightly pointed out, what about the artists? Is this what you would like to see? Well, there are artists that should have jumped on that already. But again, Brother Kofi just said it. I spent my whole life fighting against that kind of nonsense.
Thank
You had to cut through it.
Thank you. And I think if this happened to any other lineage of people, there would have been an outcry. And as I said, there's roles of it. Before I go to Brother Senu, can I just quickly show homage to your work, Brother Kofi Allen? You actually designed the Buju Banton Till Shiloh cover. This is your image. Everybody knows this album is phenomenal. Just give us some information of, what is the inspiration behind how you depicted our brother with this very, very important piece of work that he put out in the 90s.
A lot of my work is intuitively driven. I didn't have a roadmap for how I wanted to create, but what I knew I wanted to do was to see through the eyes of a lion, or not a pussycat, but of a lion, of an ancient soul. And so I looked deeper, and I started to realize that there was just nothing there. We were just surface. It was just surface images, and I was like, well, no. I started to unpack that, and so when I was in Jamaica on holiday, believe it or not, and the Spirit took me, and I got a phone book at the time. Yes, a phone book, not an email. And I went for a few studios. The Penthouse stood out for me. I didn't know who was down there, to be honest with you. I turned up Penthouse studio after making a call, and I started having this go at this gentleman, because I said to him, your music is amazing, but your visuals are absolutely terrible. We've got to balance this out. You've got to understand you're an industry. You are the forerunners of this industry. So here I am, little black man from Blighty, and I'm in Jamaica, and I'm making up a bunch of noise because I'm like, I refuse to not be heard. And Donovan Jermaine, to all his credit, he heard me, and we discussed a little proposition, and therefore we went forward. And on meeting Buju, I worked with Buju before when we did some work with him at Mercury Records. When he was a younger guy, with his baseball hat, dancehall guy. So it was quite nice to see a young man going from one state of consciousness to another state of consciousness as he evolved to Rasta. And and we actually photographed that piece on Buju Banton's rooftop in a very, 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 very hot day. And see, Buju's a very studious character. He's not just an artist. He's really crafted in his game.
I can see that.
And he made me really understand even how he voiced the voice training and what he does to treat that voice, and everything else was really well meticulously worked out throughout his day. And his studiousness of writing and studying phenomenal. So anyhow, depicting that piece there, it happened in its own natural orientation, where I brought my portable studio on this rooftop. My shoes melted literally. I walked on nearly bare feet on that day, and and when we created the final edit of the picture, and it was when the graphic designer I was working with turned around to me and said, "But if you put this picture in the mirror, you see the image of Africa." And I'm like, "Wow." Now I want to own it like I did it, but it's a natural thing. It happened, and this is what I'm saying. When we allow ourselves to work
You know?
collectively, our souls somehow make magic happen.
Mhm.
And this is something that I've discovered many years ago. When we haven't got something or someone else intervening in that beautiful process, we have a metaphysical quantum energy that happens.
Yes.
And it's a beautiful thing because it shows that we are evolving as we speak.
Thank you.
And that's a good thing.
It's a good thing. Sean Seni, thank you for your patience. Your view on the imagery. Your music is very spiritual. You have a very amazing baritone voice, I think I'm going to call it.
Thank you.
Yeah. What is your view of what I've just shown? And I don't know if people are picking up. Has anyone picked up on it? I've not seen any outcry.
Well, I mean, clearly it's outrageous. But I think that a part of our role is to be outraged by that. But I think that it's a much smaller part than what we afford to it, because I think that we need to be taking control of our own imagery, as we've said, yeah. And I think that when we get to the point where we are stepping up more so, and more of the representation of us is also by us, then these people take the position that they should be in, which is of not very highly considered. They shouldn't really be up there. But what happens is that because they are the main controllers of the definitions of everybody and everything in the society, they can pick and choose who they want to elevate and who they want to subjugate. And of course, we're always the subjugated. But I think that when we are in control, for instance, I mean, I used to be a bodybuilder and I used to compete. And there was always, and it still is, there is always discussion about how the black bodybuilders are always not given their due. It's clear. I mean, you look at a black person and you look at the average white person, and there's a massive difference in the way we are physically anyway. And then when you then put weight training to both sets of people, it's clear what's going to happen. Yeah, the white people are going to improve, the black people are going to improve, but of course, because we started out ahead anyway, there's always going to be a massive disparity. But at the end of the day, Arnold Schwarzenegger was the greatest of all time, and no one's ever been like Arnold, and it's a lot of propaganda. It's not true. There were people, there were black men that existed at the time that Arnold was competing, who, according to the bodybuilding criteria, they were far better than Arnold Schwarzenegger. And even Arnold admitted it. Yet he was the greatest of all time. And that's how it will always be, because they control that. It's a white Jewish man who owns the bodybuilding federation, the main bodybuilding federation. So obviously it's up to him what he does with his business. But we've got to realize that that's his business. So where is our business? Where is our bodybuilding federation? And then, of course, we would attract all the best bodybuilders who would know that it's going to be fair treatment, you know? So as a result, I say that, yeah, we need to be outraged when these people do what they're doing, but it's hardly surprising. But at the same time, where are our images that we've created ourselves?
Yes.
Which should be the main thing that's out there, and
Yeah.
therefore their little things can just be seen as, and they'll be seen more clearly as racism. by most people because they'll be able to see the contrast of what we're doing.
Okay.
You know?
Yes. Thank you. I think from my perspective, because reggae music is so precious to me, I think there should be some type of campaign by the artists, by those producers in Jamaica, all over the world, to have these images removed, because it's very contradictory to the position that reggae has been given by UNESCO, verbal position, and that's been immortalized electronically on Wikipedia, etc., and in the annals of history. But yet, when you look at the visuals, it's very contradictory. And from that perspective, it needs to be questioned. And I'm asking the reggae fraternity to speak on this, to give me an answer. Who am I? Because I love the music so much. It inspires my creativity as a designer and my spirituality. I'd like to know what can be done about it. Sorry, I think you want to chime in, Kofi Allen?
Yeah, 100%, 110%. Now, I sure love that. That's absolutely where my head was just going to go. In terms of, it's not even just about the picture anymore. It's about the entire industries. And I put it right across the board, yeah? And you and I, and I'm sure all of us on this panel have had experiences, whether you're in the fashion industry, you're in the advertising industry, your music industry, the radio industry, whatever industry you think you're in, you realize all the key portal points, or the tipping points of your career or of that great idea that could spark to be the next best thing, is controlled by somebody you have to somehow pass. Now, often those people I've spoken to are not qualified. They're not qualified.
Very true.
Okay, and I will categorically tell you they're not qualified. Yeah. So furthermore, it got to a point where I stopped having meetings at Sony Records, for instance. I refused to go in the building. I told Sony Music, I'm not coming to you anymore. If you want me to do something, you come and meet me down in Brixton. No problem. We'll have a meeting. I do not want to be caught up in your psychosis any further. Okay, you've come to me for something, then come to me. I'm not playing any games with you anymore. I know what I do. Yeah, I was getting paid to take a picture, but actually I was also the creative director who was getting paid. Now they thought I didn't know that, but I did know that. What I played on them was a sub-license game. They have a period to own the right to use for these purposes particularly. After that period, it reverts back to my copyright, which is now back into my family fold. And I can unpack those images now and create the most amazing images. I could sell t-shirts, I could do what I want with them, because people didn't understand the copyright laws of 1988, which protected the industry from bullying individuals. Now that's just my personal situation. I've spoken to people in various different things in the music industries, publishing industries, all these other areas, and I realized that the gatekeepers are there for that same purpose, and it doesn't even matter if they look like me or you. They're there to protect their industry. That's what they're there for.
Sometimes
they're not there to elevate us. No.
Sometimes the gatekeepers look like us.
I mean,
the gatekeepers look like us.
Let's just say what it is. It's the truth.
Sometimes they look like us.
You know, but the good thing, back to reggae music and UNESCO, because that was something that actually really did hit me in the chest. And I thought, oh, finally, there is a gong here. So what do we do about it? And I come to learn that Sizzla Kalonji is appointed, I think, the global ambassador who is leading the charge. And, you know, there is supposed to be a sub-campaign or campaign being nurtured. I spoke roughly with a gentleman called Ras Ho Shin, who's also very involved in a lot of cultural, political movements happening in Jamaica. And, you know, they are looking to take things on a much broader scale to bring some of that provenance back to our culture. But I say again, we owe it to ourselves, and this goes for all the industrial conversations that needs to happen. Yeah, Africa's opened up, and if we ain't going to embrace that conversation, more fool us.
Hallelujah.
It's as simple as that. Yeah, because we will never have a space of our own if we're still in someone's backyard.
Hallelujah. Thank you.
You know,
Brother Kofi, thank you for that. I remember we did some work with Sizzla. I dressed the Hail King.
Yeah.
That was
I remember. That was beautiful.
And we had to do a photo shoot with Sizzla at the Mighty Jetstar Studios. I remember we couldn't keep him still. And you were photographing
Luciana, Jetstar, Sizzla, and
yeah, man. It was
mad.
And we that I could have gotten that image actually of how you captured Sizzler that day, because we
Yeah.
clothes, you were doing the photography, and I'm glad
Wow.
that he has been chosen to lead that dialogue, because that brother does not play. Even then, I remember he wouldn't talk to the person that was sent to interview him. Do you remember?
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-mm. He's a devil. Something.
Yeah,
Hmm.
he was very
No, but this
explosive.
is the reality. No,
Yes,
this is reality. I mean,
yeah,
I refuse to photograph certain artists. I won't mention their names right now because my spirit wouldn't take them.
yes,
It's nothing. My spirit wouldn't go there. And I said, I'm sorry. I'm happy to do what I'm doing here. I'm not going over there. You guys carry on. I'm not chasing dreams. You know, it's just not what it's about.
yeah.
I'm making statements,
Well, perhaps
and this is.
it's the recording companies that need to step in and say that we know, as producers of this music, we do not feel the imagery. And this is when you go on the YouTube, WhatsApp, sorry, when you go on you Google, it's a compilation of images from all over the world that's been collaged to identify the music
It's
visually.
horrific. It's horrific.
Yes.
It's absolutely horrific. And I mean, you know, there has to be, as you're saying, some kind of campaign, but that should not be where we turn our energy.
No.
There has to be some kind of campaign, because at the end of the day, we still do live in the West, and the level of consciousness is not across the board. So for those in our community, and there are still those, much like there are still those in our community who believe it's important to march and to kneel and to beg and all that kind of thing, right? Which continues to be important if that is all you feel you can do at this point. But the truth for us as people who know we have to be builders across the board in all of the industries is that we have to keep our energies with ourselves, among ourselves, so that we can build. Because only by becoming our own builders, owning our products, ourselves, our culture, all that has to do with us, are we going to be able to stand with others.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
By the way, before I go, I have to say this to Brother Kofi. They're gone now, but I love those black children swimming in the pool behind you. You have a pool of black people swimming.
There's nothing like, I love this, you know. I just love this.
It's just wonderful looking at it, because you're obviously, you know, ensconced in some wonderful hotel and enjoying the sun and all that good stuff. And
no, I live in a local residence, but I come here to pretend I'm in a hotel, enjoying the sports, and I take advantage of the pool. Just so you know, right? but back to the story. You see, what's really interesting is having done my test. So my case study, my work program was my case study, and I treated it like that. I took my emotion out of it because I realized what I was up against, and I knew that the chance of me getting the true value of what it's really worth in my lifetime, it's a very slim proposition. However, the benefits outweighed the gains. Yeah. And in the process, what I benefited was watching next generations getting influenced by the work. Yeah. And it's the same way I said to my people, then when I'm having stress, having problems, having headaches, I couldn't afford to go to therapy. I put on certain music that enchanted me, that empowered me, that built me up. That showed me, what are you talking about? You get back up there and you go and do that again, son. Don't give up. When Bob Marley started talking about, you know, I don't know where you start from. War, yeah, until a philosophy, the old one man together. Then what? Listen, you just sit down. Everyone just sit down, you know, because it's just a small thing. We put that, enshrine that in our music. We oratorily gave that forward.
Yes.
This is the beauty of the science of our culture. It's not a dead culture.
That's what music is meant to be uplifting to the soul in every way. That's what we're here to do, is through the voice we give praise. Brother Senu, Sean Senu, as an educator, and you're an artist and a brilliant artist. I remember back at school, I think you did your O-levels way beyond, or your A-levels way beyond the age that you should have done them. So you're a very gifted artist. Should we have schools that we help to encourage creativity from our children that is culturally aware? So help them to
Oh,
create culturally aware
Beautiful.
images.
absolutely essential. Absolutely essential. I mean, I went into teaching originally.
Not man with
Uh,
gun and their trousers hanging down. Sorry, I didn't want, not man with gun and hoodies and all that sort of gangster.
exactly,
Something a little
exactly.
bit more
Which is,
meaningful.
yeah, that's stuff that's been given to us, and
Yeah.
we've been told to run with it, and we run with it. I'm constantly challenging that at school. And I remember I had a I had a I had a Ghanaian child that I was teaching, and he came into school with a Nike tick on the side of his head, cut into the side of his head, a few haircuts, and so I pulled him aside and I said to him, so what's this? He goes, oh, it's Nike, Nike. I said, so do you realize that Nike pay people thousands of pounds to advertise their logo, and you're advertising it for free? That's what we call slave. And he looked at me like a completely different way of seeing it, right? And you know, the next day he came in with his head bald. You know,
That's it.
that's just an example of just getting them to see, because it's almost like as a child you don't need to think. They portray it in a way you don't need to think about things because they tell you how to see everything, and sometimes it sort of limits the way that they are able to see things. But then if you can present a completely different way of viewing things, it can open them up to analyzing everything. You know, and I tell them that these other people, they have a society that is there it's there for their purposes. We don't have that situation, so as a result, we can't afford to just do things because we're being channeled into that direction. We have to be able to analyze every single thing that we do. So we have to be more intelligent than them. We are, but we have to actually consciously develop that intelligence because it's needed on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
You know, yeah. So yeah, in terms of the art, definitely it has to be cultural. I mean, I teach mathematics, and
Which
the
is art.
mathematics, which is art. There aren't any lines that define these, these things, but it's all a body of knowledge. But what I teach, I always teach the mathematics from a historical perspective as well, and I leave no doubt that this is our stuff. A lot of our people, our children, they don't see themselves in what they're being taught, and therefore it leaves them a little bit cold, and then they struggle to see relevance. But
Yeah.
then when you say this is your people, you know, so you can't say I don't get this is too hard because people that look just like you are the people that created it. So this is genetically you're in line with this sort of information. Yeah. So if you don't get this, if you're not understanding this, right? Say I don't get this. There is a good reason for not understanding it. Maybe you weren't listening properly. Maybe the teacher didn't explain it properly. But you know, you have the ability to go far beyond what this teacher is teaching you. And I'm constantly trying to get that message across because you know, GCSEs, A levels are so far below where our minds are capable of going.
Right.
And I
Yes.
teach that all the time to our children. You know, that they've got to start seeing this stuff as beneath them almost. You
Thank
know?
you. But
Yeah.
thank you. And I think we've got maybe 2 minutes left. In closing, I think to just say that as a people that have suffered the way we have, as we come to the forefront of creativity, it's important that we not only do ourselves justice, but we must do justice to humanity. So if we were suddenly the head of a massive big corporation that is an advertising corporation, we would have to ensure that everybody that comes through those doors, we treat with honor and dignity. That is our role. You said it last week, Brother Kofi. You said, I'm here to talk about injustices for everyone, but as well, my people. And that's something very, very important that we must understand. We cannot be a reflection of the oppressor and the negativity that we've incurred. We've got to deflect it on every level. So in my closing, I just want to say thank you all again for joining this panel. There's so much to talk about. But if I can just have a roundup from each of you before we go to make it fair. Sister Femi, Mother Femi, just a closing, what would you like people to go away with around this discussion? I'm not going to use the word branding.
I think what I would like, because this is always about inspire. To me, it's always about inspiring our people to go and to do the research and to identify. I'm going to use the term that Brother Kofi used last week. We're phonetic. Yes? Photonetic. Let's put it that way. That you can go and find the word, look at what it is, because we are indeed light. We are energy in a way that stands out over and above other people on the planet. Begin to own that.
Thank you. Brother Senu? Your final words.
Yeah, I would just like to say thank you very much, by the way. Another brilliant show. And I'd like to finish just by saying we do need to take our position as the people who are more, if you like, because we're the original, because we have this natural creativity that I believe others don't have, as Sister Femi said. You know, we have by virtue of our DNA, we're just naturally creative, and I think that others see that, and they're able to then others are able to take that and brand it. Yeah. Others have created systems that take control and allow them to profit from others. And I think that we need to take a look at that and see how we can start to profit from our own genius, which I do believe that we have. Without even thinking about it, we just create and create and create, and we're stuck in a create cycle. And we need to now take that and start profiting from it.
Hallelujah. Thank you. Brother, thank you. Kofi Allen out there in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. And you're lighting, look at that. Let there be light. We can see you.
That is beautiful.
Thank you. You made it. You did it. Yeah.
Wow. I mean, thank you all. Always inspired having these discussions. And in closing, I think it's we need to really own our concept of time and recognize that we've learned and we have learned from the past mistakes, and there's no such thing as a mistake if we can go back in the nature of Sankofa. As we fly forward, we look back and we bring forward, then we recognize we are becoming more intelligent, which means we don't have to suffer from the emotional traumas any further. We can curtail that by bringing our own solutions and actually applying the things that we missed the last time around. We don't have to die to come back. We could do it right here, right now. And this is the beautiful thing about intelligence. When we work collectively, we then have an intelligence because we now are working symbiotically, not just in isolation. And I think this is the thing about the European idea of how they've got us in silos, which segments us away from ourselves and our community. So I think the more we start recognizing what the community really stands for, the intelligence bank that's in that community, and what we can actually enhance in terms of protecting, pursuing, building an idea, it means everything is now possible, and we are infinite. And as Sean rightfully said, we are the origin all of the thing we do. All we have to do now is take ownership, and everything dissolves around us.
And in the spirit of Ubuntu, I am because we are. That is what you're talking of as a collective. Thank you all so much. This is Conversations with CJ Rhodes. Thank you. I'll speak to you guys after. Thank you. Peace.
Thank you.